The American economy is in trouble and maybe in very serious trouble. And when investors, particularly big ones, get a whiff of that kind of thinking, they start getting really nervous that it might be time to get rid of the stocks before they tank. And enough of them felt that way on March 10th and 11th that they gave the stock market a real shock of a downturn. First of all, crashes, downturns. The capitalist economy is highly unstable. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, capitalist economies in this country and around the world turn down every 4 to 7 months, years on average. Every 4 to 7 years, we have what can be called a crisis, a crash, a downturn, a bump, a bust, a recession, a depression. There's all kinds of language because we can't get rid of this cyclical disease that capitalism has. It's had it for 300 years. It's had it despite all kinds of efforts to get rid of it. The capitalists are scared that every 4 to 7 years on average, millions of people suddenly lose their job. Tens of thousands of enterprises go belly up. It's really bad, and some of them are terrible. The Great Depression of the 1930s, the so-called Great Recession of 2008 and 9, and even the last one we had in the year 2020, to which we gave the name the COVID crash, which was a bad one, shows that we have not gotten rid of this disease. It's virulently present. And why is that important? Because last week, the Federal Reserve Bank in Atlanta, Georgia, issued a report saying that its economic team believed that in the United States, we would have a recession in the year 2025, this year, that our economy would drop 2%, maybe 3%. That's $1 trillion worth of output we won't see because people are unemployed and businesses are belly up. Wow. And then President Trump was asked on a television interview show on Sunday, the 9th, whether he could rule out a recession, and he said he could not. Well, that was all the investors needed to hear, and they started bailing Monday morning, 9:30, when the stock market opened. And leading the pack, big tech. And that's an interesting phenomena because that's usually considered one of the most profitable, one of the most productive industrial sectors still left in the U.S. economy. But their stocks lost, in some cases, the most. So the instability of capitalism, the fact that we're due for a recession, because if the last one was in 2020, and we get one on average every 4 to 7 years, well, 2025 is 5 years from the last one, 2020. In other words, right on schedule. And Mr. Trump is not responsible for it, but Mr. Trump is not going to escape it, apparently, either. This is a part of the system that Mr. Trump is committed to preserve. So I guess we get the cycles, and they deserve then the name the Trump slump. But there's another reason, 2 more in fact, that I want to go over with you to put this stock market downturn in perspective. Mr. Trump has been an extremely herky-jerky, on-again, off-again economic policy maker. One day we're hitting Canada and Mexico with tariffs. The next day we aren't. 2 days later we're raising them. Then we're exempting some industries from them for a while, maybe till the end of the month, maybe longer. We're going to hit Europe with steel and aluminum. Who knows? No company who's got, say, a factory in Mexico or Canada is going to make the decision and spend the big bucks moving a factory from that part of the world into the United States because there's a tariff, because he doesn't know, or she doesn't know, whether the tariff will be there next week, next month, next year. And you don't want to go to all that expense if what you're going to be doing is discovering you made a big mistake because Mr. Herky Jerky Trump can't figure out what he's going to do or when he's going to do it or for how long it's going to last. Veterans on Wall Street will tell you, worse than an economic downturn is an uncertain economic set of prospects, because then the investors don't make a move. They sit. And when they sit, they don't hire people, they don't buy materials, they don't open factories, they don't do all that, which keeps the economy going. And so people are very worried. We are going to have herky-jerky president for a while in economics, and that's going to make every big player hesitate, and we're all going to suffer a recession because of it. And there's one more aspect of our economic situation that's playing a role here. It's one American leaders don't like to face, don't like to talk about, try to deny, which only makes it worse. It's the fact that the American empire is declining. As I have mentioned before, we lost the war in Vietnam. We lost the war in Afghanistan. We lost the war in Iraq, and we're losing the one in Ukraine. That's the reality. We can't do what we used to be able to do for much of the post-World War II period, when the United States was the overwhelmingly dominant economic, political, military power. We aren't anymore. There simply is no way to fake it. The People's Republic of China has not only equaled us, it has bested us, and it continues to do so. It's growing 2 to 3 times faster than the United States, and has been for the last 30 years without interruption, including right to this minute. China and its allies, the BRICS, are a larger economic unit than the United States and its G7 allies. The United States and the G7 used to be the dominant economic power in the world. They aren't anymore. China and the BRICS are already bigger, and the gap between them is getting larger, and that's weighing on investors, not just American investors, but all of the foreigners who invest in the stock market in the United States. They've been doing that for 75 years because the United States was the center of this great empire, greater in its way than the British Empire that it replaced. Nobody else has 700 military bases around the world. Nobody else comes close. But we are not what we were. We are in decline, and the growing economic power is somewhere else. That sits in the mind of all stock market investors, worried. How bad is that going to get? How long is it going to take? How deep will the decline go? Am I at risk in holding stocks? And the answer they reach is, yup, I am. And if I see the first sign of a panic, I'm going to get out before the next guy. And that's what happened Monday. And even if it comes back a little or for a while, everything I just mentioned that went into the downturn sits there. And it didn't go away. And it's not about to. And Mr. Trump isn't doing anything anywhere at this point to change that. And maybe he'll come in with big tax cuts for business and the rich, hoping that by flooding them with money, it will trickle down. Well, I got news for him. Most of the trickle-down prospects never pan out. It doesn't trickle down. It stays up there with the rich and the powerful who work overtime to keep it there. And that's likely to happen here too. We are in times of big uncertainty, big change, and big decline. The Trump slump is likely to last. At the end of World War II, after the defeat of fascists in Germany and Italy and Japan, Spain, there was a change of politics. From being an ally, the Soviet Union, became the great enemy of the United States. And in the words of a leading thinker of the time, George Kennan, the United States committed itself to containment. And what that meant was containing Russia. The socialist communist movement, of which Russia was the leader at the time, the Soviet Union, had to be, the Americans thought, contained, so that whatever they were couldn't spread, wouldn't spread, and like a disease infect other parts of the world. And so the United States embarked on a program of containment. It involved building military bases around the world, later extended to, of course, the Pacific because of the Chinese Revolution. And so it also involved spying, it involved psychological warfare, it involved political maneuvers, several wars, large and small. But it was the kind of flavor of the last 70 years. Containment. In some ways, it worked. The Soviet Union collapsed. In some ways, it failed. The Chinese experiment outlasted and outperformed the Soviet. But we have now reached a situation where something bizarre has happened. The world is upside down, and the containment by the United States of others is becoming the containment by others of the United States. More and more, the world around us looks at the United States, and I speak as someone born here, lived here all my life, worked here all my life, live here now. As an American citizen of the U.S., we are becoming a rogue state. We are becoming the object of efforts by the rest of the world to contain something that scares them about the United States. It's like the reverse of what happened after World War II in the 1940s. Now, let me explain how and why that's happening. I could start anywhere, but I'm going to start with things that isolate the United States and make it appear to be dangerous, with very, very few exceptions. The rest of the world is horrified and opposed to what the Israeli government is doing in Gaza. People disagree about the goods and bads and rights and wrongs of the Israelis and the Palestinians. Many even blame or criticize Hamas for what it did last October. I get all that. I understand it. I assume you do too. But those are separate questions from the specific tactics and strategy being used over the last year by the Israelis in Gaza. This is serious. The only significant support that Israel has, money, political cover, is from the United States. And the global disagreement with Israel's policies in Gaza is becoming attached to the United States. And it is isolating the United States. Recent votes in the United Nations involve hundreds of countries voting against us. When you add the abstentions, it's like everybody, with the exception of the United States, Israel, and maybe one or two others. But that's the tip of the iceberg. Then there are the tariffs. Mr. Trump has hit one country after another with tariffs. Countries that considered us as their close friends, their warm allies. Mexico, Canada, many European countries now look upon the United States as a danger, as an enemy, as a foreigner, as a risk. We are becoming isolated as countries find themselves not in a discussion about trade relations, but under threats, daily threats from the leader of the United States, who doesn't even hesitate to imply or suggest military action if not given what he demands. Panama Canal, Greenland, Canada as a 51st state, Mexico knuckling under. We even have the most recent extension of this behavior. Mr. Trump recently announced what might be called secondary tariffs. He proposed that he might tariff countries who purchased oil from Venezuela. You'll get a tariff not because of a problem between you and the United States, but we don't like how you're dealing with third countries, and we're going to punish you for it. Nobody else does this, friends and neighbors. This is extraordinary behavior in the community of nations. But I'm not done. The United States Navy patrols the world. A big part of it is in the South China Sea. There's no comparable Chinese Navy here. Nobody else does this sort of thing. It's aggressive. It's the behavior that would, if someone else did it, be called rogue. I'm not done. The whole world has said enough with the embargo on Cuba. You've been doing it for over half a century. If the goal was to change the government in Cuba, clearly that doesn't work. If the goal was to change the political life in Cuba, that doesn't work. It's hurtful to the mass of the Cuban people, probably minimally to those who run that society, who you say are your major enemy. Stop already. The vast majority of nations around the world have voted to end the embargo against that country. Small country, 10 or 11 million people, United States, 330 million people. We have relations with other countries that are much more risky for America than Cuba ever was. What are you doing, the world says? Why are you holding a grudge like that? Even your President Obama relaxed it for a while. You're now revving it up again? What for? What strange behavior. I'm still not done. I want to go back to Panama, Greenland, Canada, Mexico. Nowhere else on earth are there political leaders laying out what parts of the world, far from their shores, they're preparing to snatch with military means, being threatened. Other people's property, other countries' sovereign wealth, other countries' very existence. Who else calls the leader of other countries not by their local name, governor, senator, president, but by a name you choose to suggest they aren't sovereign, but they are subordinate to you? What kind of behavior is this? Some of the worst histories of colonialism and imperialism seem to be being revived here in and by the United States. And then last but not least, the sanctions. Hundreds, thousands of sanctions in which the United States government punishes a businessman here, an industry over there, a company over here, an entire country. At first, it was a very few, North Korea, Iran, Russia, but it multiplies. There's somebody in the world running around heeding sanctions. Most of the world doesn't do that, and the few that do it very minimally. We are the completely outside example. What's going on? I could continue with the list. I won't. But it's enough to say this is unique behavior. It is rare behavior. It is nasty. It is aggressive. It is hurtful. It is frightening people around the world. It is angering people around the world. European countries are giving advisories to their tourists not to come to the United States the way they once did. Canadians are changing their vacation plans. We are becoming isolated, a pariah.